just want to get back onto the beaches of Hawaii. Want to go scuba diving. Want to, get my room upgraded to the one with the drop pool in it. Like I just
God,
want what I
fucking
paid for.
pineapple sweet, bitch.
We talked about White Lotus after the first episode. I think we were both really intrigued by the show. Really interested to see where it was going. Um, I think there's a bit of like a red herring in the first episode. It starts off with them loading the remains of a corpse onto the plane as they're flying out from this resort, and you're kind of like, oh, who dies? Like where's the murder? Where's the death come in here? And I think that kind of like hangs over the end of the show. But I found this show so much more fun and compelling to be with for so many reasons that weren't that almost felt like added bonus to it. But did you have the same experience? Did you enjoy White Lotus?
Oh yeah, I think White Lotus, unless you're in the bag for Mike White's stuff, and I wasn't. I didn't really know much of Mike White's work. I knew him as the guy in School of Rock. I didn't know he was this kind of niche filmmaker,
Mhm.
and I hadn't seen Enlightened, his last HBO show, so I didn't really know like what the Mike White ticks were. So watching White Lotus, I was just pleasantly surprised a lot about where it ended up going and what like themes mattered to the show. And I like that it's not a quote like satisfying conclusion in the traditional sense. And there are lots of things that will frustrate you. And I think that is the point. And it's
Yeah.
really well done. We know it's been renewed for a season 2 at HBO. It'll now
Mhm.
be an anthology format. Honestly, it's a great premise. They'll probably pick a new island, but Mike White conceived of the show as to be COVID friendly, where you can just make a production bubble at a real life resort and make the show
Mhm.
relatively risk free. Everything sounds perfect, honestly. But season one is really great, and I think as you mentioned, like the in media res of the dead body, it's basically dropped, right? Like there's no
Oh
like
yeah.
overlying tension of what that's about until
Yeah.
they have to finally kill somebody to satisfy it, So it's almost like a play on like other shows that have quite routinely introduced a dead body in episode one as like a take, right? Like the dead girl in the beginning of Mayor of Easttown, for example, this year. But yeah, White Lotus, pleasant surprise because I wasn't really anticipating it.
I wasn't anticipating it either, and I am echoing your praise and of Mike uh, of the ingenuity of making this show. Creating this bubble. They filmed all this in fall and winter of 2020. So this wasn't something that they had in the can and were just holding for. Like this was something that they just made, wanted to get out, and also, you know, the commentary, I think some subtle and some not so subtle on socio-political issues. And just in term but to do it in the way that they did in terms of like relationship dynamics in terms of uh characters making choices that you just would never expect when you first meet them. It really just really impressive. And it's I think there's a lot of different relationships on the show that I just found myself like feeling so much tension in my stomach watching. I think the place I want to start with that is the relationship between Sydney Sweeney and Brittany O'Grady, who plays Paula.
Right.
And man, their dynamic, I felt like where it started, and they kind of in that first episode are like, oh, the bitchy teenagers who are just like judging everybody and fucking with like the older people, to
Hmm.
them being like this like epitome of like this like really toxic relationship that's built on like white privilege and
Hmm.
using a person of color as like almost an accessory to the life that that person has, just was like really really like struck me, and I was really impressed with their acting in this. Did you feel the same way?
Yeah, yeah. Well, I think everything with what's their name, the Mossbacher family is just really impressive because that's where like the most overt like conversations about like class
Mhm.
come up. This wealthy white family with entitled daughter who doesn't actually see herself as entitled. She thinks she's really woke,
Hmm.
but still actually benefits from everything she
Yep.
says she's aware of. And of course, Paula calls that out at the end there. Uh, really well done. I would say it was notable to me that Paula at no point's like, let me try and help out Kai. This guy I totally fucked over
Hmm.
with this ill-begotten scheme.
Yep.
Nope. Nope. She had a little selfishness too. And I think that's kind of the thing with this show is almost every character has some kind of flaw or some kind of tick, right? Like
Hmm.
in the case of Jake Lacey's Shane, and Jake Lacey, great performance just because he's off
Yeah.
type being a dick. He's usually not playing that kind of character.
Mhm.
But Shane is kind of right most of the time in terms of his complaints. Just the way he's going about it is terrible, obviously.
Yep.
And Murray Bartlett's Armin is barely competent as the hotel manager, but you still really sympathize with him because of
Yep.
the again the stuff about class coming in. These people in the service industry that are just subjected to making other people feel happy at when all else fails. That is their job,
Mhm.
and they have a resentment towards that, and it doesn't make you feel good, you know,
Oh
when you
no.
see anything that happens, really. Like Rachel, right? Like Alexander Daddario's character. She does not feel fulfilled in her relationship. She clearly is newly married to an entitled rich prick.
And now a
Yet,
murderer.
right. And yet, like her like work play is like, oh well, you fucking write like listicles. Like it's not like there's just some
Mhm.
wrong that needs to be righted here, you know?
Yep.
It's like there's something wrong with everyone one way or the other. And
Right.
I like how hard the show is on all of its characters, you know?
Mhm.
If anyone is like a shining light, it's probably Belinda, Natasha Rothwell's
Oh,
character. Like she's the
100%.
one that
Yeah.
doesn't have any flaws, and yet the show doesn't give her like some big speech. But Rothwell still sells it at the end when she's like, what she's
You
like,
want my
I'm all,
advice? I'm all out. Yeah,
yeah,
such a good line, and it's just such a. I think like talk about those meta, I don't know, messages that come across, like how black women, I think, are used and abused within society, and she just got to the point where she's like, I'm all used up. I can't give any more of myself to these white people who don't actually give a fuck about me. And I thought that was like actually a great way to end it, because I think if she had had a speech, it wouldn't have felt as real. And I think that's the other thing is, except for maybe Quinn, I think the arc of most of these people feels really real. Like Rachel's arc, that like I made a terrible mistake, wanting to leave her husband on the honeymoon, and then when like push came to shove, she didn't want to give up that lifestyle. She didn't actually want to like be out on her own. She just
mm,
wanted to like feel like she had more control in the relationship, and she gave in, and like
yeah,
it's I think just true to life. I think Steve Zahn, for example, like you see him grappling with the stuff about his dad, and then like his own sexuality, and like that whole thing I thought played out very realistically, where it was just like this like real terror about even the idea of like questioning like the sexuality of yourself, or like a man that you idolize in some way, and how that affects you. I thought was really just like true to form. And Connie Britton, I thought, was throwing 100 miles per hour. Her and Murray Bartlett were probably my two favorite performances, because I mean, Murray gets the most to do as Armand. He's just like ridiculous and all over the place so much of the time. And on a
tragic
hundred,
in the end, you know.
oh,
It's kind of
totally.
spirals out.
But I mean, just like spirals out in the most entertaining way for an actor. But Connie Britton just was like so measured, as I think we called her like a Gwyneth Paltrow type. I guess she's more like tech based than someone like Gwyneth Paltrow, but like the episodes where she plays up her like what was it, her like, I'm a self-made person, I didn't like get where I was because I'm a woman, like that sort of stuff. I just was like, man, like she just always seems like she nails these sorts of roles, and just the casting was great. What did you think about Quinn though? Like I think I've seen some people feeling unsure about the ending with Quinn, and how realistic that ending was.
Oh, I mean, yeah, it's not that realistic. I do think the show does a good job of making his character much more likable by the end. Because in the beginning, he just sucks. Like, yeah, he might be on the spectrum, but like at the end of the day, like he just didn't have good social skills, even as part of his toxic family. And
Mhm.
like when I watched him like drown his iPad, Switch, and phone, I was like, okay, well, you're just an idiot. Like I'm not. I can't feel bad for that. You know.
Well, but you feel bad for him because he's a white male, right? That was
Oh
like
man.
maybe the funniest like frame that Connie Britton's character tried to give throughout the whole thing. I just was like,
Yeah,
holy shit, how out of touch.
I know.
Um, Go on.
But
Sorry, I cut
but
you
yeah,
off.
but by the end, it's like kind of having this epiphany about what you value in life. And yeah, maybe they cut some corners. We only see him get on the canoe and get off the canoe and go to the next dinner and say how happy he is. Like, there's not a whole lot said on it. I guess it's really kind of like a secondary thing. Like, it wasn't like the main
Mm.
focus of the show because it's not directly tied to all the themes. But um, I didn't mind it.
Yeah, but I thought like, a character finding like true happiness and disconnecting and, learning the culture, being one with the culture, letting themselves be immersed in something was like a nice message. And I think people can have that experience when they go on a resort trip like this. I don't know. I feel like this is a show we could do like a very long review on because there's just so many themes that came out. But I guess maybe a good place to wrap this up. I think we both agree season two is going to be probably a different resort, almost certainly a different cast. But I think the premise is good. Um, when you think about the show and you look back, what do you feel like is going to be like the scene, the moment, the thing you're going to remember most?
That's a great question. I'm not sure. I'm really not sure. Um, yeah, I don't know if there's like a standout like
Moment.
rewatchable scene like that, honestly, because it's a good question. I
I
know it
think it
won't. Go ahead.
Go ahead. I think it might be that scene where Armand finally dies, right? Because the
Hmm,
visual of him actually pooping into the suitcase is such like a on the nose metaphor. But then it's so tense, like watching them like run around that room and like
yeah,
I feel like that was just really like a perfect ending. And then seeing Shane who just did this horrible thing, like oh, I'm sorry, and like you see he's not like really a terrible person, but he's also still a douchebag who just murdered someone. So it's like
yeah,
perfect encapsulation right there.
yeah. I will say it's not going to be any scene with Tanya, Jennifer Coolidge. Like, Jennifer Coolidge's performance is good, but I just really didn't like the Tanya character. Just like it's just so aloof
Mhm.
and like I don't know, the energy was just weird for me. Didn't really like that one.
Well, what did you think of Greg, her love interest?
Yeah, he was kind of cool just because he's like added halfway through the show. It's like a different energy. Also, like when Molly Shannon shows up as Jake
Yeah.
Lacey's mom for a bit, and I like that. That was nice.
Greg, did you recognize him?
No,
This is gonna be a deep pull. Did you ever see Napoleon Dynamite, Dave?
yeah,
Greg is Uncle Rico from Napoleon
wow,
Dynamite. He threw football over them there mountains back in the day.
damn.
So,
Did you
yeah,
did you recognize Quinn?
he was in Underground Railroad, man.
That's right. Fred
Yeah,
Hetchinger was young Joel Edgerton in the flashback episode.
much different role,
You could
and
say that,
probably an actor to be keeping our eye on.
yeah.
So,
And
White
clearly,
Lotus.
Sydney Sweeney is just adding to her CV. She's actually has a quite impressive young career already.
She's dynamite, man.